ones, welcome back to Life and Times of Sahaja Yogis. We have again with us Mr. Sanjay Roshan Talwar. Sanjay Ji, you're most welcome to the show. Thank you for giving us your precious time and also sharing with us the precious moments that you have spent with Shri Mataji. So previously you have told us about how you came into Sahaja, how Shri Mataji came into your life. We would like to know, this is the second episode, we would like to know more about your beautiful experiences. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Aparna ji. As part of the series that we are sharing today, I'm back with you. And as part 2 session, I would like to sort of recoup a bit about what I spoke last time, just to bring those in understanding of what happened in the last episode who may not have watched it. I covered my life. I covered my where I came from, my background, my parents, my education, and then how I met Shri Mataji and where. And so that was a very interesting part of the story last time. So please do watch the first episode for that. We'll take this further. I spoke about that it started all in 1982, and then in 84 I got my self-realization, and then 84 to 85 was a very a period in which I was very enamored and enchanted by the goddess, and I saw what she was, and I was attracted a lot to her. And on her invitation to London in 1984, when I went to her house, I was fortunate that she gave me self-realization on the 4th of July, which was the American Independence Day, which I can never forget. You know, it's the day of your rebirth when you take your realization. That's what we say in Sahaja Yoga. So Shri Mataji was like a savior, I would say, in my life, I felt, because I had another guru. And I had mentioned last time that my parents used to go to various gurus, and we had one more guru. We were all guru hopping and shopping in those days, as we were all seekers. You know, all seekers are looking for solace of knowledge and experience of spirituality. And like all seekers, we were seeking too. And my guru, old guru, happened to be in London in those days when I had met Shri Mataji in 1984. And as a matter of great concern, because our parents used to visit that ashram, which was in Karnal, quite often. And in fact, you'll be surprised that it's the old guru's ashram where I had met my wife for the first time, and they solemnized our marriage in the old fashion, you know, as I had described it. But the interesting part was that the old guru happened to be in London at the same time I was visiting Shri Mataji, and I had just 48 hours before I was to catch my flight out of London. So this experience I wanted to narrate because I was so concerned about the other guru that I told Shri Mataji that we follow this person who's been, you know, our family guru. And Shri Mataji said, you must go and pay your respects, and you will learn more about Sahaja Yoga through your own experience. There's nothing that I have to tell you. And I shared this with my guru brother, Alex Henshaw from Hong Kong. When he was driving me from the airport, I was telling him that, you know, this lady whom I used to follow also happens to be in London, and I want to pay my respects. So he, in fact, told me that I should be careful, and I could not understand what that meant. All right, because I was too overwhelmed by the past experience I had with my guru. But still, after having met Shri Mataji and being attracted to her and found her so beautiful and so lovely, in every way a loving mother, I asked my friend, I said, I want to take a gift for the other guru, and what should I do? So he handed me over a book called The Advent, written by Gregoire. And it had just come out, that book. He said, why don't you present her this book and tell her about Sahaja Yoga? And she had come for actually a cure of some illness that she was suffering from. She was a lady. So I went to her with the book. He dropped me up to a point where I could go and meet her. I had fixed the appointment to meet her. And when I met her, out of sheer concern for her health, I said, I have met a lady called Shri Mataji, Nirmala Devi, and she enchanted me so much that I wanted you to benefit from the knowledge of Sahaja Yoga, which she said that it improves your health and it improves your well-being. And since you are so unwell and you come all the way to London for treatment, why don't you read this book? I'm told that this book contains a lot of information with which you can help yourself to get better. But to my shock and surprise, the minute she saw the book, she just flipped it behind her and it went crashing down the window because it was open. She was sitting at a point where there was a window behind her and it crashing down maybe to her backyard garden. This shook me. I was taken aback. I could not understand why would she do such a thing. It shook me to the point that instead of staying on to inquire about her health and be concerned, I felt hurt. I felt why, without even trying to see what it is about, that she has flipped the book. So I ran from there. I had tears in my eyes. It was something like I cannot explain. This was my experience that Shri Mataji was talking about. And I went to the backyard, I booked the book, and I just left. I just walked away. They came running after me and never looked back. And then I never looked back, ever. I just carried that book close to my heart. And that was an experience I wanted to share with you, how things just unveil you and then teach you the truth about where you should be going, where you should be heading if you have found the truth. The truth that I had found was in my realization, which Shri Mataji had given me. Though it was too early in those times, but I managed to make it back to the apartment in which Shri Mataji was putting me up. And Alex was waiting for me and he said, I knew you would come back. And then he taught me a few things, how to get rid of such attachments to gurus and other sort of forms of influences that are become part of our lives, because we haven't gained anything from them. We have been going to them for years and years and years, but there was no sort of the kind of feeling I got from Shri Mataji that instant. I knew that she was the person I really needed to understand more about spirituality from. And from there started my journey, where I started to learn from Alex, taught me a few things like shoe beating and giving band, sort of early for me to look at it like some sort of an exercise, that we were doing. But still, he even taught me how to do a foot soap sitting there. So those are the little things in that journey I experienced. And then, of course, on the next day, I was to fly out to Canada. I had a business meeting, which was arranged by my brother. We had joined business together. After I had left my job in Bombay, we had, as I had said, I had settled in Delhi because my father had this detachment of his retina, but miraculously mother got his eyesight back. I spoke about that last time. And my brother and I were progressing in our business together. And our business wasn't picking up. It just was in the early stages. And he had sent me for a sort of a survey come marketing. But there I went and I met an English, British. It looked to me British, but he's an American. He was from Los Angeles. I had held up a stall of hardware. We were exporting hardware. And he came visiting my stall and he made friends with me. His name is Walter Ritter. I'll never forget him. Till today, he's one of my best friends. You won't imagine. the kind of relationship we built at that time till today, for the first time, I felt that you have relatives all over the world. And Volta was my first, after Alex, he was the second brother, I would call him, overseas, whom I'm not having any blood relation to. But he was my buyer. He came as a buyer to my company, and he gave me such a huge order that I could not fathom. And I remember Shri Mataji telling me on the day I had had my realization that now you go for your business and I wish you success. And it was like her wish had come true. It got a very big order. My brother was so happy. He had just got me into this business. I am a chemical engineer, no knowledge about exports of hardware, and got back with a huge order. We were processing that order. We made good money out of it. And my brother made me the managing director of the company. And I went further to a couple of more places overseas for expanding our business. So, the well-being suddenly started to come in our lives. And this went on till, I would say, 1984 end. When I was back in India, I was full up of Shri Mataji and my experience of my self-realization. It was such a beautiful time I had had. And then one fine day, I got a call from Pune. Shri Mataji was back in Pune, and she said that I want you to come to my program in Calcutta, which was to be held in early 1985. And so I asked my father. My father was already practicing, and he was spreading Sahaja Yoga in North India. When he became the leader of North India, there were hardly 200 people in Sahaja Yoga. And by the time all these years had passed, he had traveled with Shri Mataji quite a lot and himself given self-realization to thousands of people. And Sahaja Yoga had started to pick up well in the whole of North India. So my father was going to Calcutta, and he said, I believe Shri Mataji has invited you. I said, yes. So my wife still was halfway in and halfway out. She wasn't yet much convinced, and she was watching me, how I was faring, and she saw some sort of change in me, and she got attracted. In 1985, she started meditating. And I was very happy because I wanted my best half to also do what I was doing. And then we had this little daughter of ours, very, very sweet daughter. But my wife was expecting another child, and so she could not come with me to Calcutta. So I went alone with my dad. And in Calcutta, we were staying at Mr. Jalan's house, and Yogi Mahajan Ji was always there, putting us through all the programs which Shri Mataji had arranged, which Chalanji had arranged, and Yogi Ji was organizing and coordinating with our Indian teams. So my father was always at mother's feet, and Mr. Jalan was there, and Yogi Ji. And there was a day when I sat in front of Shri Mataji, and there were some talks going on, when she suddenly looked up at me and she said, can you write poetry? And I said, yes, Shri Mataji, you had taught me. And she said, when? A day back, Yogi had given me a poem he had written. And he said, when Shri Mataji looks at you and says something, just read it out to her. So actually, I hadn't written anything. It was Yogi's poem. So I read it out to Shri Mataji. And Shri Mataji said, this is not your poem. And I said, Shri Mataji, I will write something. And I went into the other room and I wrote a poem. And then I composed it also in my own way, being very fond of music. And I just kept it in my heart that one day I'm going to narrate it to Shri Mataji, but I never had the heart to, go forward and tell her, Mother, this is my poem and please listen to it. So you can hear that song. It is titled as Hey Ma, Adi Shakti, Gauri Ma, Adi Kundalini, Ma Jagadamba. And of course, Aparna will play that for you after this episode. So that was the beginning, I would say, of my being Christianed as a musician, as you can say, as a writer. Shri Mataji is prompting me to do that. And then my experience in Calcutta was so profound because my elder brother, my brother's wife, he was also with us in Calcutta. And then Shri Mataji had this public program. And after that, it was announced that Shri Mataji would be going to Jaipur. Did I talk about the Jaipur experience to you in my last talk, where Shri Mataji and I drove in the car? Aparna, do you remember? Because I may be not putting things in the chronological order, but I think I'm speaking in a chronological order that we are moving from 1984 to 1985. Yes, now I remember 1985, Shri Mataji had planned a trip to Jaipur, and probably it was her second trip. She said first trip, it didn't work out much. But this
came
time,
to Kolkata. You came to Kolkata
yeah,
first.
from Kolkata, we were supposed to go to Jaipur after a few months. And she had expressed her desire. In Kolkata, we had a puja where some yogis taught me some songs which Shri Mataji loves to hear. And I remember one of the first songs I sang at that puja was He Adi Ma, He Anti Ma, Je Vaan Chale, Te Tu Dile. And I sang it for the first time, and Shri Mataji kept nodding. And she said, you must come forward whenever there is a puja or whenever there is a program, and you must sing, you know. So there, my participation started in her public programs and her puja from Calcutta itself. But the real push for music that I got from Shri Mataji was when she invited me to Jaipur, which is when we were back from Calcutta after a few months. We drove, my father, myself, my wife, my mom, we all drove to Jaipur, and we went to stay with a lady called Mrs. Pardal. She happened to be the leader for Jaipur for Sahaja Yoga. Shri Mataji had appointed her. And when we went to stay with her, my mother looked at Mrs. Pardal, they looked at each other, and then they hugged each other. And Shri Mataji said, do you know each other from before? And they said, yes, we used to study together in college. And Shri Mataji said, what a small world. She is the one who's going to be looking after Sahaja Yoga here. And she had a huge palatial house. And she told my mother that you're not staying anywhere, you're going to stay with me. So my parents said, no, but Shri Mataji is staying with you. You're hosting her. How can we all stay here? She said, no, I have a big house. Come and see. We have so many rooms upstairs. And Shri Mataji has a special room downstairs. And while we were all there in front of Shri Mataji, said, why don't you people stay in the same house? So that was the big fortune that we stayed in the same house. It was the December of 1986. And this is the year that I would say my music started to become more Sahaj than what it used to be in the early years of my life, which was singing filmy songs and winning awards in college and school. And Shri Mataji almost gauged that this part of me she was going to work on. When she had held my hand way back a few years and said that you are going to be one day a singer and a musician. And this is how this process started in Jaipur. And there is one instance when Shri Mataji and Rajesh Shah and Yogi Ji, they were all there, and they were talking about the building Pratishthan in Pune. And Shri Mataji was saying that the architect has got all the plans ready, and he's told me if I can get some good artifacts and doors and windows and jharokas from Rajasthan, then we could have a beautiful house, like a museum in Pratishthan in Pune, because that was just a piece of land with just some drawings done by the architects. I remember the name of the architect was Mr. Patankar. And Shri Mataji had the plans laid out in Jaipur, and they were all looking at the plans. And then Rajesh Bhai said, Mother, I have arranged for my car. It's a Mercedes car and a driver. And tomorrow we have arranged another car, a pilot car, to be with you. And you will go and visit all these places. We have fixed up with the house owners and some store owners to have a look at these Jharokas which you want to buy. So while she was talking to them, we were all sitting, because we used to be just small group of people sitting on the floor while Shri Mataji was doing her work, and we had just her hands out meditating in front of her. And she just looked up at me and she says, "You'll take me." So I just got very surprised. Rajesh Shah said, yes, Shri Mataji, if you want, Sanjay can go along in the car. So Shri Mataji said, no, you'll take me. And then the matter got over. We couldn't understand what it was. How am I taking Shri Mataji when everything is arranged? And so we all, that evening, when we retired for the night, early morning at 5 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. I was sleeping at Mrs. Pardal's house in the first floor. And they said, Shri Mataji wants you to meet her. I said, Mother's up so early. And I was sleeping. I was very groggy. But then I quickly sort of put some water in my eyes. I left down into her room, went. And Shri Mataji just looked up at me, to me and said, I said yesterday, will you take me? I said, Shri Mataji, the car driver is arranged for you. If you want, I can come. But there may not be much place because there are so many people going with you, as has been arranged by Rajesh Bhai. So Shri Mataji said, you just sit here. So she sat there. I just sat there. I closed my eyes. She was sitting on her bed. I sat in front. And then there was a knock on the door. And somebody came up and said that, Shri Mataji, today there is a small problem. She said, what? She said that the driver is not well. He is gone sick. So he will not be able to drive the Mercedes. So Shri Mataji looked at me and she said, will you drive the Mercedes? I said, Shri Mataji, I've never driven a Mercedes car, but from Delhi, we had drove a small Fiat car, which had a bucket seat in front. And it was a brand new Fiat car my father had bought. I said, Ma, I can only drive that car. So she told that man, don't worry, let the Mercedes be. I'll go with Sanjay in his Fiat car. And like my heart skipped several beats at that time. And I just bowed to Shri Mataji. She said, you can drive around Rajasthan? I said, yes, Shri Mataji. She says, okay, go get ready. We are going to leave in an hour's time. And I just scrambled up, then told my wife, get ready, we have to leave. I told my dad, we have to leave. And Shri Mataji decided who all would come. The car could take only 5 people. 3 could barely squeeze in at the back. And Shri Mataji said, I'll sit with Sanjay on the bucket seat next to him. So she sat in the front. And this is very unusual because Shri Mataji would always be sitting at the back with the driver in the front, and made very comfortable with just one person sitting next to her. And then she kept asking the other 3, can you all squeeze in? I want Mrs. Pardal, I want Manish, because Manish used to cook for Shri Mataji. And she told me, you want your wife to come, Aradhna? I said, yes. She said, yeah, she can come. So there was no place for anybody. So there were other 4 or 5 people in contention who had to accompany Shri Mataji. So Shri Mataji said, let the pilot car follow and let all the others come in that. So that is how it was organized. And within an hour, we left on that journey. And that journey was the journey, I would say, of my life. Because in that journey, as we started off, Shri Mataji said, this is going to be a long journey together in the car. So you need to do one thing. I believe you are a good singer. I said, Shri Mataji, I only sing film songs. She says, doesn't matter, but you have to entertain us. What are we going to do for all these hours when you're driving? I said, sure, Shri Mataji. So as we were going by in the journey, I started humming my favorite song. And then Shri Mataji said, oh, you have to sing the whole song. I said, Mother, but this is a film song. She said, doesn't matter. You sing a film song. Let's enjoy that. So I sang a song, and Shri Mataji heard the whole song. It is Jeevan se bhari teri aankhein, majboor kare jeene ke liye. It was a song from the film Safar. I was very fond of that song. And she heard the whole song and she says, do you know that if this song which is being written for one's lover, if you could just turn around and sing it for the Devi, for me, and just see how the vibrations are. So she said, now think that you're singing it for me and sing the whole song again. And then she told everybody in the car, please hold out your hands and see what vibrations you feel. So I sang the whole song again, and everybody said, Shri Mataji, it's like an air conditioner flowing in our hands. It's becoming so cool. It's becoming so beautiful. And she says, there, this is the song you should sing for me. And there, this was the spark of the music that she had instilled in me. And then she said, well, it's a long journey. How about another song? So I have one more song from another film industry, which is हमें तुमसे प्यार कितना ये हम नहीं जानते मगर जी नहीं सकते तुम्हारे बिना. So when I sang that song, Shri Mataji said, now let's do one thing. Let's change the words a bit. So she said, हमें माँ से प्यार कितना ये हम नहीं जानते मगर जी नहीं सकते सहज के बिना. She said, now if this is what yogis would sing, they would convey the meaning of Sahaj Yoga through this song. The song is very beautifully, it is very well composed, well written. Just change the words and sing it. So we started to change the words. While I was singing, Shri Mataji started to give the words herself. Now, my wife carried a dictaphone with her, and we were prepared that while during the journey, Shri Mataji might say something, so we should record it. So I told her, please, whenever Shri Mataji is changing the words, please record it. So she would have the recorder right in front of Mother's, just between the two of us on the front seat, and put it on. And while the conversation went on, I was singing, she would change the words, it would all get recorded. And then Shri Mataji said, now you should hear this recording again and again, and you know that the words have been changed, and now you sing it. And this should be a song that you should sing for public programs, because it conveys, it tells people about the love for the mother and what they ought to understand about their own enlightenment. So the words were such crafted by Shri Mataji herself. So the song originally had 2 verses, and I went back to Jaipur once I had finished everything. When we went back to Jaipur, I wrote the 3rd verse myself. So that was the second song that I spoke about. Now, I think let's go chronologically. We proceed as the miracles happened. Now, you have to see there are 2 miracles I noticed in that journey. The first was when the car started swinging to the left. We had driven for about 8 hours already, and it was getting dark, and Shri Mataji went to sleep, and the car started drifting to the left, and it started drifting a lot. And then one of the tires I felt was like virtually running on the rim. So I started to worry, and I started to whisper at the back that Shri Mataji is sleeping, but the car, it seems, has a puncture because it is drifting, and I can feel it very clearly. So the minute I just whispered, Shri Mataji just woke up from her sleep and she says, just keep driving, don't worry. And the minute she said that, the car went back into normal. There was no drifting. There was no feeling of the puncture, nothing. And the car just started doing normal. Everybody was so shocked and amazed. But Shri Mataji says something and it just immediately happens. We drove for almost an hour. After that, there was a light we saw on the right side of the road. And Shri Mataji said, please stop at that light. We stopped at that light. And Shri Mataji told my wife that she wanted to visit the washroom. Actually, that light was nothing but it was a petrol pump. And at the petrol pump, when she got out from the car, she just told me, get the tire changed. And like Shri Mataji went away, the guy from the pump came and said, sir, but how did you ride? This is totally sitting on the rim. How long have you been riding? I said, but I have been riding for 1 hour. He said, not possible. There is not a single damage to the tire tube, nothing. Well, that was nothing short of a miracle that we had experienced. And spellbound, he of course changed the tire, put everything around. But by that time, the pilot car had arrived. So Shri Mataji then told me, I'm moving into your pilot car. You get the tire properly repaired, whatever is necessary to be done, get a new tire. Make sure you catch up with us. We are moving forward slowly and you come behind us. And Shri Mataji went into the pilot car and we were behind. And as we were going to get started, she told me, we had such a lovely time with you when you were singing. Don't you let this time go. While you are driving behind me, I want you to make many songs on Sahaja Yoga. And I know you can do it. I said, Mother, but I only know film songs. She said, doesn't matter. Start from film songs. Then slowly and slowly you'll start composing. And we'll take it from there. So there it started. My wife sat in front with me. We were following Shri Mataji's car. Shri Mataji was ahead of us. We were just two of us and two more people at the back. One of them had moved into the pilot car. Shri Mataji was in front. And then the car, we were driving and there were a couple of songs I wrote. One was Bekhabar Hoke Aap Yun Na, because that was my favorite song. Bekarar Karke Hame Yun Na Jaiye, Aapko Hamari Kasam Laut Aiye. So it was a very favorite song of Hemant Kumar from the old film. And the words started coming to me and my wife had a paper and a pen with her. She was writing down and the song was ready. And then all of a sudden, it was like getting almost midnight. We had been traveling non-stop. We had stopped in between places that Shri Mataji had to visit. I'm not going to all those details, otherwise this would go into a very long conversation. It was a 3,000 kilometer drive we did with Shri Mataji. One instance I can tell you is about that all of a sudden the pilot car stopped at a village because Shri Mataji again had to go to the washroom. And somebody from the pilot car came and called my wife and said, please take Shri Mataji. So we stood by, both the cars stood by, she went. It was a small village. Shri Mataji went inside and some people accompanied and showed the way where she had to go. And then all of a sudden I saw a huge crowd gather on the side of the village footpath that Shri Mataji had just walked through. And I just got very inquisitive and went up and I asked what happened. They said, all the ladies said, oh, she is a goddess. She is the Mahashakti. I said, what happened? They said, no, there is this old man. He used to be in his wheelchair all the time. And for years and years, he's been sitting in that corner on a wheelchair because he's completely paralyzed. His legs can't move. And when she passed that way, she looked at him and she asked him, Baba, why don't you walk? So he said, I can't walk because I am completely paralyzed. So she just touched his knee. She just touched his knee and she walked away. And they said that when mother went away, this man caught up and he started walking. They said he hadn't walked for years and years. And now, what were these experiences? Basically, meant for me, maybe meant for so many of us who need to know who she was. There was no way going back to know who she was. And she kept showing that her greatness as the Adi Shakti, as the Shakti of the Shiva, come on this earth to teach us that who we are, that we really don't know who we are. And this makes you humbler because it's like the God coming down to your level. And then these small miracles start happening before you. What happens to you inside? You are convinced to the core. And that helped me to compose, to write poems. And in that journey, you know how many poems I wrote? 24 poems. And I remember it was about 2 a.m. in the night when we broke our journey to stop at a hotel. It was in Makrana. And do we have time, Aparna, to say this last bit of, then we can close after this? Do we have some time?
Yeah, you can narrate this one.
Okay. So this is very interesting. There, at the last switch off point, that is from that place where the miracle happened, where the man started walking, my wife and I could not contain having not Shri Mataji in our car. So we just looked at her with our folded hands and she just obliged. She told them, I'm going back in Sanjay's car. And then she came back in our car. And then it was just her, me, and Mrs. Pardal. Then the pilot car was ahead of us. We were behind. And I remember this very clearly. It was past midnight. And while we were driving, Shri Mataji was now sitting at the back seat. And my wife was sitting in the front with me. And there was Mrs. Padal next to her. And as we were riding, Shri Mataji said, I want you to go a little further and stop by the fields. So we stopped the car by the fields. And she again got up. Maybe it was been a couple of hours of driving that she wanted to go into the fields. Again, my wife said she has to go to the washroom. So she took Mrs. Pardal with her, and she told my wife and I, you just sit here and wait for the stars and the whole sky. It is going to come down at my feet and you can almost touch them. Just see how they behave in front of the goddess. She said that and she went away. And we both were just sitting in the car. And I tell you, we had that fantastic experience. We felt that the whole sky had come down and we could see the planets, we could see the stars all around us as if we were floating. And the moon was so huge. It was like another dimension we were gone into, both of us. And I don't know how long it lasted. And then all of a sudden, it was all back to normal. The sky was up there, the moon was shining, the stars were bright, and Shri Mataji had just come back. And we just had tears in our eyes, and we looked at Shri Mataji and we said, Shri Mataji, we saw what you told us. She said, wasn't that beautiful? And it was like, my God, we're realizing that you're sitting with the goddess herself. And then we drove on and we reached almost at the start of Makrana. And then we saw a man running behind our car. And Shri Mataji told us, he is a Devi Bhakta. He was running very fast. She said, slow down, because he's trying to catch up with our car. Then we saw a light and a big gate on the left side. And she said, just go into that gate on the left. So there was no plan what we were doing, where we were staying. There was just no plan. This man owns this hotel and he's inviting us to come and stay there. And he's running. And he had a shawl, a big shawl, a red shawl with him. And the minute we stopped at the gate and we opened Shri Mataji's door to get up, he ran so fast, he almost stumbled in front on her feet. He fell flat and he laid down the shawl and he said, "Ma, don't step on the ground, step on the shawl." And she stepped on the shawl. And then he was lying flat. And she said, "Thank you. We are going to spend the night at your hotel." And he said, "This is what I wanted, Shri Mataji. I know that you are the goddess. I have been praying all my life to have your darshan." And then she walked into his hotel and we settled Shri Mataji. And thereafter, I'll leave it here because then I want to continue this story in the next session. It is a very beautiful memory that is coming back to me. I may have narrated it in different formats or written about it, but now it's really like a flow that's coming to me. These 2, 3, 4 songs I spoke about, I will send it to Aparna. She will play a little bit about them so that you can get the feel of what was created in those times. And then what happened in that hotel and thereafter, and the visit of Makrana and how she chose her artifacts for Pratishthan and how Pratishthan was made. There is a huge story behind it, and I was associated with it by the grace of Shri Mataji. She involved me into it. And then our journey back to Rajasthan. And then from there, she asked me to fly with her to Bombay and then go to Pune. And all that happened as a continuous flow over a month and a half. Very beautiful experience of 1986, a year I will never forget in my life. I want to thank you all for this opportunity that Aparna has given me to narrate my life instances with the greatest goddess born on earth, Her Holiness Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi. Thank you and Jai Shri Mataji.
1 second, I have a query. I am sure others would also want to know. Like when you said that the villagers, that wheelchaired man, he got up. So those villagers were not Sahaj Yogis. They were non-Sahaj Yogis.
No, they were not Sahaj Yogis because they were just people from the village. And this man used to be sitting there in the corner all the time. And they said nobody cared about him. This old man has been there on the wheelchair. He has some relatives who keep feeding him food and giving him blankets. He has no place to go. And all this happened thereafter. Suddenly he's walking.
And that is where the villagers came and they were trying to get a look at Shri Mataji.
Yes, they were all trying to fall at her feet, and then all these people who were with Shri Mataji whisked her away. And that is the time I requested her to come in our car. And then she quickly came in our car. And it happened so fast that the pilot car that was supposed to take Shri Mataji, they were in fact a little disappointed that Shri Mataji had moved into our car. And we had this exclusive time with her, and small little talks here and there which happened in the car, which I may not be able to recollect or remember, but beautiful moments, I tell you, one of the best ever.
And the Devi Bhakta who was running with the shawl, he is also, like it was unplanned that you will stay in his hotel. It was unplanned.
It was unplanned. Even we had lost sight of the pilot car that was supposed to follow us. And they somehow got the wink that Shri Mataji had stopped in that place. Maybe either they saw it from far behind, then they followed suit, and then everybody was accommodated in the hotel. And this man's name was Mahender. I still remember. And he was from a royal family of Rajasthan.
And he owned that hotel.
He owned that hotel. He was the owner. It was past almost 2 o'clock in the morning.
So, are you going to tell us in your next episode how that man recognized Mother? Did he say anything? How he came to know about Shri Mataji?
Yes, I'll let you know. It's a
Okay,
story.
Mahender Ji.
I Mahender Ji, and how next day he came to her room to pay his respects, and how Shri Mataji told me that he was a very old Devi Bhakt, and he was waiting to meet me, and so because of his deep desire, I had
She
to
had to
oblige him.
come. My God. And he
Oblige.
was not even a Sahaja Yogi. He was not even a
No, no,
Sahaja
he
Yogi.
was no.
My God. Can't believe such miracles. Oh my God. People will be so surprised to listen to all this. And that one more thing, one last question. What
Yeah.
about that stars and moon becoming very close to you? You felt both you and Radhara Babi. The both of you
Yeah, we
felt
felt
that.
we were, we felt we were floating in the atmosphere. Because we saw all of a sudden the whole sky come down. Now, we were sitting in the car, so basically we were watching it from the windshield,
Hmm.
and we could see this whole huge moon glowing in front of us. And then we could look around a bit, and we could see those stars and the planets. I mean,
Planets means
it
what?
was like
You
a
could see
dream.
Saturn with the ring. Like that
I don't
also?
remember. I don't.
Okay.
It was like those stars that keep shining, which are keep flittering. They were pretty huge. They were like, it was
Okay.
like a sudden magnification of the sky just in front of you, as if
As if
you
you
are
are seeing
floating
it
in.
through a telescope. As if.
Yeah, you're inside. You're inside it. You're in that three dimension. You're like you're floating in the vacuum. That's the kind of feeling we both got, that we were floating. Sometimes you get this feeling in a simulation when you go to Hollywood, one of those
Hmm.
cinemas where they put you, and you suddenly start feeling that you're floating in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
In the
mean, out
solar
of the
system.
atmosphere. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the system. Yes. It was that feeling, that wonderful feeling.
My God. Amazing. We really, really look forward to this third episode. Now I am also getting, very excited to listen about all this. Anyways, we will put an end to this episode. Do send me the links of the songs I will play a bit of it, all of them, which you are talking
Yeah,
about.
I think four of them I will send you. You can just play about a line or whatever you'd like to play through it.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Jai Shri Mataji.
Thank you. Jai Shri Mataji. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon again, maybe next week.
Yeah.
God
Jai
bless.
Shri Mataji.
जीवन से भरी तेरी आँखें मजबूर करें जीने के लिए सागर भी तरसते रहते हैं तेरे रूप का रस पीने के लिए जीवन से भरी तेरी आँखें हमें माँ से प्यार कितना ये हम नहीं जानते मगर जी नहीं सकते सहज के बिना हमें माँ से प्यार कितना ये हम नहीं जानते मगर जी नहीं सकते सहज के बिना हमें माँ से प्यार कि आप यूं न जाइए आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए बेखबर हो के आप यूं न जाइए आपको हमारी कसम लौट आए। दलदलों में है फंसे अनेक जी, जानते नहीं ये बात है अजी। जो सत्य है वो कह गए चिरण जी, आज वही सत्य जाना सजी। कृपा हो श्री माता जी की खुद को पाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेखबर होके आप यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आए।
हे मां आदि कुंडलिनी गौरी मां, आदि शक्ति मां जगदम्बा, करुणामयी मां की है कृपा तूने। योग सहज लाकर आत्म बोध दिया, करुणामयी मां की है कृपा तूने। योग सहज लाकर आत्म बोध दिया। हे मां आदि कुंडलिनी गौरी मां, आदि शक्ति मां जगदम्बा।